Answers for grade 1 workpack, directed numbers, pages 9, 10, 11 and 12. We may split this up into 2 video clips. Let's see how we go. Question 1 tells us this map of the British Isles. We can see some are negative temperatures, some are positive temperatures. Write down the 2 places that are the biggest difference in temperature. First thing that I would have on this is I would line them up. So we've got -7, -6, -4, 3 and 5. So I can see I've got my lowest temperature, Edinburgh, at one side, and my biggest temperature, my highest temperature, Plymouth, at the other side. So the 2 names would be with the biggest difference would be the lowest temperature, Edinburgh, and the highest temperature, which was Plymouth. Then it says work out the difference between these 2 places on So I'm going to put -7 on my number line, and I'm going to put 5 on my number line, and I'm just going to count between them. So I can see I need to make 7 places to get to 0. I could count them if I want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Remember, you're counting the jumps, not the lines. And then I need 5 more jumps to get to the number 5. So the difference is 12. Much easier using the number line. 2 pairs of places have a difference in temperature of 2. Write down. Well, I can easily see that these 2 have a gap of 2. So that is Plymouth and London, which has a temperature of 3. So now I'm looking for 2 more places with a gap of 2, which is the -6, Cardiff and Belfast. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Just get it lined up. Right, question number 2 asks us to write down the highest temperature. Well, I can see that most of these that are in negatives are really cold, so I've got a choice between 7 and 6, so I'm going to use 7 degrees. It's asking me to write down the temperature, so I'm correct. The lowest temperature is going to be -10, because that is the lowest one. And if I look back on my number line, I would see that's further to the left. Part B, work out the difference in temperature between 4 a.m, so that is -10, and 8 a.m, -4. So on my number line, there's 0, there's -10, -9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. That is a gap of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then it says between 3 p.m, which is 6 degrees, and 7 p.m. from the table is -2. Number line, there's my 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 degrees, -1, -2. So I've got a gap of 2 degrees to get back to 0, and another 6 degrees, so that is 8 degrees. The number line works. Use it each time. It's also useful if you're doing your calculation in your head, just as a check. At 11 p.m. that day, the temperature had fallen by 5 degrees from its value at 7 p.m. So at 7 p.m, now I've changed the direction of my number line because it's talking about rise and fall. I've got -2, which is my temperature. At 7 p.m, it falls by 5 degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it lands there, -2, -3, 4, 5, 6, 7, -7. Move it into view. You've got some planets and some temperatures. Work out the difference in temperature between Mars, -60 degrees, -60, and Jupiter, -150. Number line. Now I'm not going to place these all together and count them all out because it's just going to take too long. But I've put them on my number line, and I can see that to get from 60 to 150 is 90. So to get from negative 60 to negative 150, it'll still be a jump of 90, but in the opposite direction. Now it asks us to work out the difference between Venus. Venus is 480 and Mars, which is negative 60. Number line 0. 480 is all the way across there. Negative 60 is on the other side. That is a jump of 60. That is a jump of 480. So altogether I need to add them together. So I get 540 degrees. Then it says which planet is 30 degrees higher than Saturn. So Saturn is 108, negative 180 degrees. So it's a jump of 30 degrees towards the 0 because the temperature is getting higher. So that is negative 150, which is Jupiter. And then the next question, Pluto is 20 degrees lower than the temperature on Uranus. So Uranus is minus 210, and we want to make that lower. So I'm changing the order on which I'm putting my scale because it's on about lower, so I want to move it down. 0 is high up there. So I want 20 degrees going down, so that's minus 220, minus 230, so negative 230 degrees. Right, let's move on to the last 3 questions. Let's get the first one in line. Write down the temperature shown on the thermometer. So I can see that I need to check the scale first of all. So I'm going to count up in ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That matches, so I know that I'm going up in ones. 1, 2, 3 degrees. The temperature falls by 8. Right, so if it falls by 8, I need to count down to 8 degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I may finish off at negative 5. Check it, count it yourself. Question number 5. Got a table, highest, lowest. Asks us to work out the difference between the lowest temperature in London. So I'm going to write that down below the information. And lowest temperature in Moscow. So lowest temperature in Moscow is minus 8 or negative 8. Right, number line, negative 6, negative 8. So I can see that is a gap of 2. Work out the difference between the highest and the lowest temperature in London. So the highest temperature is 8. The lowest temperature, excuse me, is negative 6. Number line 0 in the middle. 8 is placed on my number line, negative 6. I can see that's a gap of 6. I can see this is a gap of 8. So altogether, I have a gap or difference of 14. Right. Last question. I squeezed all these answers onto one video clip, which is good. Which city has the lowest temperature? Well, it's not going to be Belfast because that's a positive number. So the lowest temperature is going to be Glasgow. Work out the difference between the temperature in Cardiff, so that is negative 1. This is good practice. Write in the information as soon as you can find it. So the temperature in Belfast is 5. Number line 0, 5, negative 1. They don't have to be exactly to scale. That is a gap of 1. That's a gap of 5. So altogether I have a gap of 6. And the last question, by Tuesday the midday temperature had risen, number line going this direction, by 7 degrees. London is negative 4, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0. So I'm filling in my number line. Now I'm going to read the next piece of information. Write down the midday temperature on Tuesday. So it's risen by 7 degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 3 degrees. Thank you. That's the end of the directed numbers worksheet.